For thousands of years, the coastal frontiers of the world, where violent oceans clash with impenetrable tropical jungles, have served as an unforgiving barrier. These volatile threshold zones have crushed anyone who dared to challenge them. Look at the early British colonialists who tried to tame the suffocating swamplands of the Malay Peninsula, or the ambitious local empires that attempted to build permanent fortresses in the shifting, malaria-infested mud. They failed miserably. They left behind nothing but sunken wooden hulls, squandered fortunes, and graveyards swallowed by the relentless tides. Logic dictates that humanity should step back. The price in blood, engineering, and sheer capital is far too high. You do not build a utopian metropolis on top of a volatile, deep-water strait, yet driven by supreme, blinding arrogance and a desperate hunger to capture the overflowing wealth of a neighboring economic giant. An unprecedented alliance of foreign mega-developers and local royalty decided to violently alter the map. They chose to rip up the ocean floor, choke the sea with millions of tons of sand, and erect a monolithic city of glass where absolutely nothing should exist. This is the story of how the colossal developer Country Garden declared war on geography itself, poured $100 billion into the earth, and built Forest City, learning the hard way that when you try to conquer nature, nature always strikes back. To understand the sheer lunacy and the breathtaking scale of this mega project, we must rewind time far back. Before the empty glass towers pierced the sky, the Johor Strait, the narrow channel of water separating the nation of Malaysia from the island Republic of Singapore, was a hostile, untamed wilderness. This was not a tranquil, picturesque beach. This was a brutal ecosystem of deep, rotting mangroves, tidal surges that could rip apart reinforced hulls, and unfathomable depths of soft, highly unstable marine clay. The environment here behaves like an active, breathing monster. It is a humid, suffocating realm where the corrosive salt air eats raw iron in days, and the mud acts like a giant vacuum, ready to swallow heavy machinery whole. Why then would anyone attempt to conquer this liquid abyss? The answer lies in absolute geopolitical desperation and insatiable greed. Just across this treacherous strip of water lies Singapore, one of the wealthiest, most densely packed financial centers on the face of the planet. Singapore is bursting at its seams, suffocating under the weight of its own economic success, with land prices soaring into the stratosphere. The developers looked at the empty, hostile swamps of Johor and saw a gold mine. If they could just destroy this natural barrier, if they could violently forge new land right on the doorstep of this global economic powerhouse, they could create a massive tax haven utopia. They could siphon the staggering wealth of the global elite into a private kingdom of luxury. Survival in the modern real estate market demanded the impossible, the annihilation of the ocean. But throwing thousands of bodies into the sea would not solve the problem of sinking mud. The secret weapon required to defeat this environment was a display of brutal, unprecedented technological force. This was land reclamation on a scale that defies human comprehension. The solution was an armada of colossal dredging ships, the largest and most powerful mechanical beasts ever constructed by human hands. These aquatic leviathans descended upon the strait, their massive mechanical maws tearing into the ocean floor day and night. They violently sucked up millions upon millions of cubic meters of sand from distant seabeds, transporting it across the open ocean and vomiting it into the Johor Strait. They were not just building structures, they were playing God, forcing 4 massive artificial islands to rise from the crushing depths. The scale of this operation is almost impossible to grasp. The newly forged landmass would cover over 7,000 acres. They poured enough specialized, salt-resistant concrete into the ocean to pave a multi-lane highway across entire continents. They forged a skeletal structure with steel far heavier than a dozen Empire State Buildings. Forest City was designed to house an astonishing 700,000 human beings. It was an architectural fever dream that blatantly defied gravity and logic, featuring towering skyscrapers meticulously designed to be covered entirely in dense, vertical jungles. It was an unparalleled flex of brute force engineering, a green-washed fortress built on the sheer arrogance of infinite, uninterrupted capital. The initial phase was an explosive triumph of human will. The dredging ships roared, the sky was permanently choked with the dust of pulverizing rock, and billions of dollars flowed into the muddy water like a torrential flood. Sleek, hyper-futuristic showrooms were erected, projecting a blinding optimism. Wealthy investors from the People's Republic of China bought luxury apartments by the thousands, sight unseen. The sea was aggressively pushed back. The towers rose at a terrifying, relentless speed. It was the absolute zenith of human hubris. But then, the disaster struck. Nature and geopolitics conspired to orchestrate a catastrophic counterattack. First, the geopolitical foundation crumbled. The Chinese government, terrified by the massive bleeding of domestic wealth, suddenly slammed down draconian capital controls. The infinite river of money dried up overnight. Then, a global pandemic locked down the borders, completely severing the city from its financial lifeblood. But the physical reality was even more brutal. The violently disrupted marine ecosystem began to exact its revenge. The unimaginably heavy towers were pressing down on the newly formed land, and the unstable marine clay deep beneath the sand began to aggressively shift and settle. Structural cracks began to whisper through the concrete. To save the megaproject from becoming the most humiliating global failure in the history of civil engineering, a desperate maneuver was executed. A massive, brutalized labor force of migrant workers from across South Asia was pushed to the absolute breaking point. They toiled in the punishing, suffocating heat of the tropical sun, pouring thousands of tons of concrete day and night to stabilize the sinking foundations. A silent, heavy blood price was paid in severe exhaustion, catastrophic workplace injuries, and the relentless, soul-crushing grind of offshore construction. Through sheer, stubborn violence, the engineers bent the ocean to their will, finishing dozens of monolithic skyscrapers. But it was a hollow, haunting victory. Jump to the modern era. The colossal megaproject stands, and the civilized world has largely forgotten the violent struggle of its birth. But Forest City is now a sprawling, eerie ghost city. Barely 1% of the projected population actually lives within its walls. And now, the true nightmare begins, because the project is aging, and nature is relentlessly executing its long-term plan to take its territory back. Every single day, a silent, desperate battle is fought just to keep the city from collapsing into ruin. The vertical gardens, once pitched as the ultimate symbol of eco-friendly luxury, have mutated into an uncontrollable, aggressive jungle. The invasive flora is slowly cracking the facades of the empty towers, harboring massive swarms of mosquitoes and venomous tropical pests. The harsh, salty breath of the ocean is relentlessly corroding the foundational steel, eating away at the structural integrity of the bridges and retaining walls. The artificial beaches are violently eroding back into the sea with every passing storm. Most chilling of all, massive saltwater crocodiles have been spotted actively hunting near the immaculate, completely abandoned pedestrian promenades. The megaproject now demands a staggering, continuous flow of millions of dollars, purely for silent, preventative maintenance. An invisible army of technicians must constantly run massive water pumps, patch failing concrete, and trim back the encroaching jungle just to prevent the ocean from swallowing the entire $100 billion investment whole. Today, this impossible city exists in a state of horrifying paradox. If you look at the superficial, glossy promotional brochures, it is still presented as a marvel of modern urban planning, an indispensable, futuristic utopia. But the brutal reality on the ground is that it is a colossal, silent tomb of ambition. It is a monolithic, unnatural scar on the face of the planet, erected with the sweat of a massive labor force and kept on life support by a daily, exhausting, invisible effort. Monumental engineering is, at its very core, a violent and strictly temporary act of defiance against the natural world. You can violently displace millions of tons of ocean water, and you can pour mountains of concrete into the deep, but the ocean never forgets where it belongs. Sooner or later, the Earth will always attempt to reclaim what was stolen, because sometimes, hidden beneath millions of tons of steel and concrete, there is a quiet, invisible war. A war between our relentless ambition to shape the Earth, the laws of nature trying to tear it down, and the terrible price we pay to stand in the middle.